the early hours of July 6, 2020, Montgomery, Alabama faced a devastating loss that would shake its law enforcement community to its core. Detective Tanisha Pughsley, a respected officer who had dedicated her life to protecting others, found herself unable to secure protection when she needed it most. At just 27 years old, this promising young detective's life was cut short in her own home, a place where she should have felt safest. The tragic irony lies not just in her role as a law enforcement officer, but in the steps she had taken to protect herself. Just weeks before her death, Detective Pughsley had obtained a protection order against her ex-boyfriend, Brandon Webster. She had followed every legal protocol, every procedure she had advised countless others to take. Yet despite her training, despite her understanding of the system, despite her position within law enforcement, these measures weren't enough to save her life. This case raises profound questions about the effectiveness of protection orders and the unique challenges faced by law enforcement officers dealing with domestic violence. Tell us in the comments, what more could have been done to protect Detective Pughsley? Detective Tanisha Pughsley joined the Montgomery Police Department in 2016, quickly establishing herself as a dedicated and compassionate officer. During her 4 years of service, she went beyond the call of duty, actively engaging with community outreach programs while excelling in her investigative responsibilities. Her colleagues at MPD knew her as someone who consistently demonstrated exceptional commitment to public service. She volunteered with Transformation Montgomery, helping to provide affordable housing solutions and life skills training to those in need. Her impact extended to mentoring young girls at the Sequel Group home, where she became a role model for aspiring youth. Detective Pughsley's approach to law enforcement was marked by her emphasis on prevention and education. She regularly shared safety tips on social media, particularly focusing on women's protection, and advocated for proper firearms training among female citizens. Before we delve deeper into this compelling case, take a moment to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of significant cases that deserve attention. If this is your first time here, activate the notification bell to stay informed about our latest releases. Later in this video, we'll present our unbiased take on the incident, examining a critical aspect rarely discussed: the unique challenges faced by law enforcement officers who become victims of domestic violence. The statistics and systemic issues we'll uncover might surprise you. How can we better protect those who protect us? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you find this story impactful, help us spread awareness by giving this video a thumbs up. Your engagement helps ensure that stories like Detective Pughsley's reach those who need to hear them most. Born and raised in Chicago, Tanisha Pughsley, affectionately known as Tookie by her family, grew up in an environment that shaped her future dedication to public service. Her mother, Dr. Sharon Pughsley, instilled in her strong values of education, community service, and personal integrity from an early age. Under her mother's guidance, Tanisha developed a deep understanding of the importance of helping others and standing up for what's right. Her brother, Dandre Jenkins, often spoke of Tanisha's early determination to make a difference in people's lives, a trait that would later define her career choice. These formative years in Chicago laid the foundation for her future path in law enforcement. The diverse urban environment of Chicago exposed her to various social issues and community dynamics, experiences that would prove invaluable in her future role as a law enforcement officer. Tanisha's pursuit of higher education brought her to Alabama State University, where she majored in criminal justice. During her time at ASU, she distinguished herself both academically and athletically, becoming a valued member of the university's bowling team. This balance of academic excellence and athletic discipline showcased her commitment to personal growth and team collaboration. Her coursework in criminal justice provided her with a comprehensive understanding of law enforcement principles, criminal behavior patterns, and the importance of community-oriented policing. Professors remembered her as a student who consistently engaged in meaningful discussions about law enforcement reform and community relations. Beyond her studies, Tanisha actively participated in campus organizations focused on public service and criminal justice reform. Her academic achievements and leadership qualities at ASU set the stage for her successful transition into professional law enforcement. In 2016, Tanisha Pughsley joined the Montgomery Police Department, marking the beginning of a distinguished career in law enforcement. As a detective, she earned recognition for her professional approach to investigations and her ability to build trust within the communities she served. Her colleagues at MPD noted her exceptional skill in handling sensitive cases and her commitment to thorough, detailed investigative work. She developed particular expertise in cases involving vulnerable populations, bringing a combination of professional rigor and genuine empathy to her duties. In the department, Tanisha became known for her proactive approach to community policing. She regularly participated in departmental outreach programs, fostering positive relationships between law enforcement and local residents. Her contributions helped strengthen the bond between the police department and Montgomery's diverse communities. Outside her official duties, Tanisha devoted significant time to community service through her work with Transformation Montgomery. This nonprofit organization focused on creating positive change through affordable housing initiatives and educational programs. Her involvement directly impacted families seeking stable housing solutions and children needing educational support. At the Sequel Group home, Tanisha established herself as a trusted mentor to young girls, many of whom faced challenging circumstances. She shared her experiences and knowledge, guiding them toward positive life choices and educational opportunities. Her dedication to mentorship reflected her belief in early intervention and positive role modeling. Through her social media presence, Tanisha extended her community impact by sharing crucial safety information and advocating for women's empowerment. She emphasized the importance of personal safety training and consistently encouraged women to take proactive steps in protecting themselves. Brandon Webster entered Tanisha Pughsley's life during what appeared to be a normal courtship. Their relationship progressed to the point where they shared a residence, a decision that would later prove consequential. Despite Tanisha's professional training in recognizing warning signs, the initial phases of their relationship showed no obvious indicators of the violence that would follow. As a detective who had handled domestic violence cases, Tanisha understood the complexities of abusive relationships. Yet her own situation demonstrated how personal relationships can cloud judgment, even for those trained to identify dangerous patterns. The facade of normalcy in their relationship began to crack as Webster's behavior shifted from attentive partner to controlling presence. Their shared living arrangement, rather than strengthening their bond, became the setting where Webster's true nature emerged. The proximity allowed him to exert increasing control over Tanisha's daily life, a common pattern in domestic abuse situations that would ultimately lead to devastating consequences. The deterioration of their relationship manifested through increasingly aggressive behaviors. Webster's actions followed a concerning progression that began with attempts to control Tanisha's daily activities and social interactions. His behavior soon evolved into more overt forms of abuse, creating an environment of constant tension and fear. Despite her professional experience with domestic violence cases, Tanisha found herself navigating the complex dynamics of an abusive relationship. Webster employed tactics common to domestic abusers, isolating his victim, undermining her confidence, and creating an atmosphere of unpredictability. His actions became more forceful and intimidating, particularly when Tanisha attempted to establish boundaries or assert her independence. The situation intensified when Webster began appearing at her residence uninvited, a clear indication that he refused to respect her personal space and autonomy. His intrusive behavior extended to monitoring her movements and demanding explanations for her daily activities, demonstrating classic patterns of coercive control. One particularly alarming incident occurred when Webster's aggression endangered not only Tanisha, but also an infant. During this confrontation, Webster struck Tanisha twice in the head while she was holding a 5-month-old baby, causing her to lose her grip. This event marked a significant escalation in the severity of his violent behavior and demonstrated his complete disregard for the safety of others. The physical assaults continued to increase in both frequency and intensity. Webster's attacks often targeted areas that wouldn't be immediately visible to others, a common tactic used by abusers to avoid detection. His violence was calculated, occurring in private spaces where Tanisha had limited access to immediate help or witnesses. These incidents represented more than isolated outbursts. They formed a pattern of deliberate intimidation and control. Each attack served to reinforce Webster's dominance over Tanisha, while simultaneously making it more difficult for her to seek help or escape the situation. Webster's campaign of intimidation extended beyond physical violence to include systematic harassment and theft of Tanisha's personal property. He repeatedly took items from her home without permission, using this tactic to maintain control and create ongoing instability in her life. These thefts ranged from personal belongings to items essential for her work. His harassment took multiple forms, including incessant text messages and phone calls at all hours. Webster would flood her phone with messages, alternating between threats and attempts at manipulation. When Tanisha didn't respond, he would escalate his behavior by appearing at her workplace or residence unexpectedly. The harassment intensified after Tanisha attempted to distance herself from the relationship. Webster's actions became more aggressive and unpredictable, leading to a constant state of anxiety for Tanisha. His behavior demonstrated the classic pattern of an abuser refusing to accept the end of a relationship, instead choosing to escalate his controlling tactics through intimidation and fear. On May 22, 2020, Tanisha Pughsley took formal legal action by filing a protection order against Brandon Webster. Her petition detailed an extensive pattern of abuse, including physical assaults, threats, and persistent harassment. The documentation submitted to the court outlined specific incidents that demonstrated the immediate danger Webster posed to her safety. In her filing, Tanisha provided comprehensive evidence of Webster's threatening behavior, including documentation of his unauthorized entries into her residence and instances of physical violence. She specifically requested that Webster be prohibited from any form of contact, and crucially, asked for an order requiring him to surrender all firearms, a request that would later prove pivotal. The filing process demonstrated Tanisha's understanding of legal protections and her professional commitment to following proper procedures for securing her safety. The court reviewed Tanisha's protection order request in June 2020, examining the evidence she presented regarding Webster's threatening behavior. During the proceedings, the court considered multiple documented incidents, including the assault that endangered both Tanisha and an infant. The evidence demonstrated a clear pattern of escalating violence and harassment. Throughout the hearing process, Tanisha provided detailed testimony about Webster's conduct, supported by documentation of his repeated violations of her personal space and safety. The court examined the severity of his actions, particularly focusing on incidents where he had demonstrated aggressive behavior and made threats against her well-being. On June 19, 2020, after reviewing all evidence, the court reached its decision. While granting most of Tanisha's requests, one crucial element of her petition remained unaddressed: the surrender of Webster's firearms. The protection order, granted on June 19, 2020, established specific legal boundaries that Webster was required to follow. The court mandated that he cease all forms of harassment and maintain a distance that would prevent him from placing Tanisha in reasonable fear of bodily injury. The order explicitly prohibited any direct or indirect contact through phone calls, text messages, or third parties. However, a critical element of Tanisha's request went unfulfilled. The court did not require Webster to surrender his firearms. This decision left a significant gap in the protective measures, as Webster maintained access to weapons despite his documented history of violence. The order included standard provisions for law enforcement intervention if Webster violated any of its terms, but without the firearms restriction, its effectiveness was compromised. At this critical juncture in Tanisha's story, we must pause to consider the implications of protection orders and their enforcement. How effective are these legal safeguards? We invite you to share your experiences or insights in the comments below. Your perspective could help others facing similar situations. As we continue with this account, you'll discover how the absence of a firearms restriction in the protection order played a crucial role in the events that followed. Our upcoming Unbiased Take section will examine the systemic challenges in enforcing protection orders, particularly when firearms are involved. If you find this information valuable, please consider sharing this video with others who might benefit from understanding these legal processes. Remember to subscribe and enable notifications to stay informed about similar cases that highlight critical gaps in our protective systems. In the days preceding July 6, 2020, Tanisha Pughsley maintained her regular work schedule at the Montgomery Police Department while adhering to standard safety protocols. She had taken precautions at her residence in the Park Lake neighborhood of Montgomery, following the protective measures outlined in her court order. On the evening of July 5th, Tanisha was at her home on Overview Drive with a guest. The presence of another person in her residence aligned with common safety recommendations for individuals with active protection orders. She had followed proper security measures, securing her home according to standard procedures. The night proceeded without initial incident until approximately 2:15 a.m. on July 6th, when Brandon Webster, armed with an AR-style rifle, forcibly entered her residence, violating the active protection order. His unauthorized entry immediately created a life-threatening situation. Upon encountering Tanisha and her guest in the residence, Webster initiated a confrontation, brandishing the weapon in a clear violation of the protection order. A physical struggle ensued when the guest attempted to disarm Webster, recognizing the immediate danger to both their lives. During this confrontation, the guest managed to engage Webster in a brief struggle over control of the firearm, creating a momentary diversion that would prove crucial in the sequence of events. The confrontation moved through multiple areas of the residence, with Webster maintaining control of the weapon throughout the encounter. The guest present during the incident demonstrated remarkable composure under the life-threatening circumstances. During the struggle over the firearm, they managed to create enough of a distraction to find an opportunity to escape. Upon breaking free from the confrontation, the witness immediately fled the residence to seek help, understanding the gravity of the situation. This witness's escape proved crucial, as they were able to alert authorities about the ongoing situation. Their first-hand account would later provide law enforcement with vital details about Webster's actions and the sequence of events that unfolded that night. Their testimony became instrumental in the subsequent investigation and legal proceedings. However, in the critical moments after the witness's escape, Webster turned his attention solely to Tanisha, who remained trapped inside the residence. Webster confronted Tanisha directly, shooting her in the chest. Montgomery Police Department officers responded to the scene immediately after receiving the alert. Upon arrival, they found Tanisha with fatal injuries. Despite their rapid response, medical personnel pronounced her deceased at the scene. The Montgomery Police Department initiated an immediate response protocol. Law enforcement officials secured the crime scene while the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force began their pursuit of Webster. The department also implemented their officer down procedures, notifying key personnel and providing support to responding officers who discovered one of their own. Mayor Stephen Reed and MPD leadership responded swiftly to honor their fallen officer. The department placed black mourning wreaths on the doors of MPD headquarters, and city officials ordered flags lowered to half-staff in recognition of Tanisha's service and sacrifice. The U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force apprehended Brandon Webster following an intensive search operation. Their swift action in locating and arresting him prevented any possibility of flight from jurisdiction. Upon his arrest, Webster faced immediate charges reflecting the severity of his actions: 2 counts of capital murder, one for committing the act during a burglary and another for violating the protection order. Law enforcement officials also charged Webster with attempted murder related to his actions toward the witness present during the incident. Following his arrest, the court ordered Webster held without bond on the capital murder charges, while setting a $150,000 bond for the attempted murder charge. The prosecution built their case on multiple elements: the violation of the active protection order, the premeditated nature of Webster's actions, and the attempted assault on the witness. Key evidence included documentation of the protection order violation, forensic analysis of the crime scene, and testimony from the witness present during the incident. The district attorney's office presented a comprehensive case detailing Webster's pattern of escalating behavior leading up to the fatal night. They emphasized his deliberate choice to bring an AR-style rifle to Tanisha's residence and his conscious decision to violate the protection order, demonstrating clear intent and premeditation in his actions. The Montgomery Police Department responded to the loss of Detective Tanisha Pughsley with formal honors befitting a fallen officer. Chief Ernest Finley led the department's response, implementing immediate protocols to honor her service. Fellow officers established an informal memorial at her desk, celebrating her contributions to the department and community. The loss particularly affected her immediate colleagues, who spoke of her dedication to public service and her commitment to community-oriented policing. On July 10, 2020, over 100 MPD officers, community members, and family gathered for a candlelight vigil to honor Tanisha Pughsley's life and service. Chief Ernest Finley addressed the assembled mourners, highlighting her dedication to law enforcement and community service. During the vigil, colleagues shared personal memories of working with Tanisha, emphasizing her positive impact on the department and the lives she touched. Dr. Sharon Pughsley, Tanisha's mother, spoke movingly about her daughter's commitment to public service and her vision for community policing. The gathering provided a space for collective mourning and remembrance. In July 2021, Transformation Montgomery dedicated a pavilion and bench in Tanisha's honor, recognizing her volunteer work with the organization. The memorial site serves as a permanent tribute to her commitment to community service and affordable housing initiatives. Dr. Sharon Pughsley established Tookie's Voice, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting domestic violence victims and honoring those lost to such tragedies. In October 2023, the organization unveiled a peace garden at 2625 Lower Wetumpka Road in Montgomery, creating a space for reflection and healing while raising awareness about domestic violence prevention. The Montgomery Police Department continues to honor Detective Pughsley's legacy through annual remembrance ceremonies and departmental training initiatives, focusing on officer safety and domestic violence awareness. Her story has become an integral part of the department's training curriculum, educating new officers about the importance of protection orders and personal safety. Local law enforcement organizations regularly collaborate with Tookie's Voice to provide resources and support for officers facing domestic violence situations. The Peace Garden serves as an active community space, hosting regular events that combine domestic violence education with community outreach programs, ensuring that Tanisha's impact continues to create positive change in Montgomery. The trial of Brandon Webster commenced in August 2023, with prosecutors presenting evidence of Webster's premeditated actions. The court examined detailed testimony from the surviving witness who provided a first-hand account of the events leading to Tanisha's death. The prosecution established a clear timeline, demonstrating how Webster violated the protection order by entering Tanisha's residence armed with an AR-style rifle. The defense team's arguments were systematically countered by forensic evidence and expert testimony. Throughout the proceedings, the prosecution maintained focus on Webster's deliberate choices: his decision to arm himself, his forced entry into the residence, and his actions toward both Tanisha and the witness. In August 2023, the jury reached their verdict, finding Brandon Webster guilty on all charges. The court convicted him of 2 counts of capital murder: 1 count for committing the murder during a burglary and another for violating the active protection order at the time of the offense. Additionally, the jury found him guilty of first-degree attempted assault for his actions against the witness. The court sentenced Webster to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the capital murder convictions. For the attempted assault charge, he received an additional 10-year prison sentence. The sentencing concluded the legal proceedings, providing a measure of justice for Tanisha's family and the law enforcement community. The case of Detective Tanisha Pughsley highlights critical concerns about domestic violence within law enforcement communities. Research indicates that officers face unique challenges when becoming victims of domestic abuse, particularly regarding reporting and seeking protection. The professional dynamics of law enforcement can create additional barriers to accessing help. Officers who experience domestic violence often encounter complex pressures related to their professional status. These pressures include concerns about career impact, fear of judgment from colleagues, and the potential effect on their ability to perform their duties. Additionally, their training and professional experience with domestic violence cases can paradoxically make it more difficult to acknowledge their own victimization. Recent data reveals concerning patterns regarding domestic violence within law enforcement communities. Reports from the United Kingdom indicate that police officers and staff faced approximately 700 domestic abuse allegations within a 3-year period, averaging more than 4 incidents per week. However, experts suggest these numbers significantly underrepresent the actual prevalence. The conviction rates present an equally troubling picture. In England and Wales, only 3.9% of reported cases against police officers resulted in convictions, compared to 6.2% in the general population. This disparity indicates potential systemic issues in how these cases are handled, particularly when the accused holds a position within law enforcement. Law enforcement officers who experience domestic violence face distinct institutional barriers. Access to support services becomes complicated by professional relationships and department dynamics. Officers may hesitate to report abuse when it involves a colleague, fearing professional repercussions or damaged relationships within their department. The existing reporting structures often fail to provide adequate protection for officer victims. Department policies may not address the specific challenges officers face when reporting abuse, particularly regarding confidentiality and protection from retaliation. Additionally, when officers report abuse by colleagues, they frequently encounter resistance within their departments, leading to potential career impacts and workplace isolation. Police departments across the country have begun implementing new approaches to address domestic violence within law enforcement. The National Police Chiefs Council and Crown Prosecution Service developed comprehensive plans to enhance accountability and improve case handling. These initiatives focus on creating independent reporting channels and ensuring impartial investigations. Several departments have adopted specialized protocols for cases involving officer victims. These include establishing dedicated units staffed by officers from outside jurisdictions to handle investigations, implementing mandatory training programs on officer-involved domestic violence, and creating confidential support services specifically for law enforcement personnel experiencing abuse. Detective Tanisha Pughsley's legacy continues to influence positive change in the Montgomery community. Through Tookie's voice, established by her mother, Dr. Sharon Pughsley, her impact extends beyond law enforcement to address systemic issues surrounding domestic violence. The organization provides crucial support services to victims while advocating for stronger protective measures and legislative reforms. The Peace Garden stands as more than a memorial. It serves as an active community resource center where educational programs and support services converge. Regular gatherings at this location bring together law enforcement, community organizations, and domestic violence prevention advocates to develop comprehensive approaches to victim protection. Tanisha's professional dedication lives on through departmental training initiatives that emphasize the importance of thorough domestic violence response protocols. Her case has prompted necessary discussions about strengthening protection order requirements, particularly regarding firearms restrictions. As we conclude this examination of Detective Pughsley's story, your engagement can help create meaningful change. Please consider sharing this video to raise awareness about domestic violence within law enforcement communities. The unbiased take section we discussed reveals critical systemic issues that demand attention and reform. For those seeking to make a difference, we encourage you to Share your thoughts in the comments about improving protection order effectiveness. Support local organizations working to prevent domestic violence. Subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of cases that highlight crucial social issues. Thank you for joining us in remembering Detective Tanisha Pughsley and the vital conversations her story continues to inspire. Together, we can work toward better protections for all domestic violence victims, including those who dedicate their lives to protecting others.